In Shoe Dog, Phil Knight chronicles the journey of creating Nike, a globally recognized athletic shoe and apparel company. Like many entrepreneurs, Knight started by solving his own problem, wanting high-quality, low-cost running shoes. He offers an honest perspective about the imperfect process of building a successful company. Published in 2016, Shoe Dog is a guide to starting a business, following your crazy ideas, and overcoming obstacles. By offering his personal experience as a testament to the power of hard work and creativity, Knight aims to inspire other entrepreneurs, artists, and people trying to find their way in life. Knight breaks down the process of creating Nike. First, we'll discuss his crazy idea to sell Japanese running shoes. Next, we'll describe how he followed this idea with his first company, Blue Ribbon, and some of the major developments during this period. Then we'll discuss how Blue Ribbon transitioned into Nike and how Nike became the successful brand it is today. Finally, we'll explore Knight's reflections on Nike and advice for young entrepreneurs, such as learning as you go and trusting your team. New section: Crazy Idea, Following a Calling. Knight's journey began with what he calls his crazy idea, or his way of making a mark on the world. His crazy idea was to partner with Japanese shoe companies and sell their shoes in America. He'd written his thesis on this topic in college, and he was passionate about both shoes and running. Although he didn't have a concrete idea of what he wanted to do with his life or how he would execute this crazy idea, he decided to follow it and see where it took him. Knight recommends following your own crazy idea, which he believes will motivate you more than the pursuit of money, success, or other people's approval. Knight wants people to be passionate about what they do, just as he was with selling running shoes. Throughout the book, he advises readers to follow a calling rather than settling for a job. Insights from Built to Last. Knight's crazy idea is similar to Jim Collins and Jerry I. Porras's idea of a big, hairy, audacious goal, or a BHAG, which is a goal that takes you out of your comfort zone. In Built to Last, Collins and Porras argue that BHAGs typically take 10 to 30 years to achieve and have a 50 to 70% chance of success. Your BHAG is supposed to be ambitious, as this will kickstart forward momentum. To accomplish a BHAG, keep these 4 ideas in mind. Fully commit to it. You need to be willing to do whatever it takes to ensure your BHAG's success. Look beyond the money. Be driven by the urge to accomplish the impossible, not by profit. Make it institutional. If setting a BHAG for your company, build the goal into the ethos of your organization so future employees and leadership can maintain the momentum of the goal. Keep setting more BHAGs. To avoid complacency, continue setting goals, even after you've achieved your initial BHAG. New section: Blue Ribbon, Getting Started. When he was 24, Knight traveled to Japan to pursue his crazy idea. He pitched his idea to a Japanese shoe manufacturer, Onitsuka, whose shoes he liked. He wanted to be Onitsuka's distributor in America, and he believed it would be a profitable venture. He told Onitsuka that they could surpass Adidas, the dominant shoe brand at the time. His passion for his crazy idea paid off, and the businessman agreed to his plan. They accepted Knight's proposal and asked for the name of his company. Despite not yet having a company, he told them Blue Ribbon, inspired by his childhood wall, decorated with blue ribbons from track. Short-form note: Knight admits that he started his company by lying about having a company. Ambitious entrepreneurs often follow the advice of fake it till you make it. Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes lied about her company's blood testing technology, and Reddit created fake user accounts to populate its site. But what if you'd rather take the honest route? Instead of lying about qualifications or product updates to investors or business partners, try being forthright about the issue and offering a detailed plan to show that you've already thought ahead about the problem. Finding a co-founder. Knight's crazy idea got an unexpected boost when he sent samples of Onitsuka's shoes to his college running coach, Bill Bowerman, who had always sought out high-quality running shoes for his team. At the time, Bowerman was the most famous track coach in America, training local champions and Olympic track stars, and Knight hoped he would like the shoes enough to order a few. So Knight was shocked when Bowerman said he not only liked the shoes, but he also wanted to be a part of the business. Bowerman wanted Knight to retain operational control of the company, so they worked out a deal. They'd split the company 51% to 49%, Knight with the 51%. They'd each put money into Blue Ribbon, and Knight got his investment from his dad. At first, Knight and Bowerman sold the shoes at track meets. Knight showed Onitsuka's shoes to runners, coaches, and fans who enthusiastically bought the shoes. Just a few months later, their fledgling company sold out of their shoes and ordered another shipment of 300 shoes. Short-form note. As Bowerman did for Knight, a good co-founder can complement your skills and create a more manageable workload. When looking for a good business partner, Tony Robbins recommends looking for someone who is solution-oriented, has a good reputation, shares your values, and has clear communication skills. You and your business partner should also reach a fair agreement on who runs the company and how to split equity. You should also solidify an exit strategy in case either of you want out of the business. Financial problems. Knight soon faced a problem: financing. As a small business founded in the 1960s, Blue Ribbon got startup money from banks, not venture capitalists. But the banks were reluctant to lend too much money to an unproven entity. By 1965, Blue Ribbon was growing fast and doubling sales regularly. They sold $8,000 their first year. But this cash was quickly turned around to order the next, larger shipment of shoes. And because Onitsuka's shoe shipments often arrived late, Blue Ribbon had less time to sell shoes, which then made each loan repayment period tougher. Thus, Blue Ribbon struggled to meet bank payments and fought a low cash balance. This would be a problem for Knight for many years. 3 funding issues startups face. Financing is a common problem for startups and small businesses, and many of the 90% of failed startups cite cash flow problems as a reason for going out of business. Experts advise that to prevent funding issues, follow these 3 tips. Don't ignore scalability. When looking for funding, many founders don't clearly communicate how they will grow their business. Show investors and financial institutions a plan for how you'll use the money they loan or invest in your company. This was the main problem for Knight. He didn't clearly plan or communicate how he'd use investors' money. Don't neglect personal relationships. When networking with potential investors or banks, make a personal connection. Don't just try to secure funding. Even if they do provide financial support, you'll be working with them, so foster a good relationship. Know how funding works. There are several ways to fund your business: venture capital, loans, angel investors, and so on. Research different options and determine what's best for your company. While Knight was limited with his options in the 1960s, new businesses now have more ways to fund ventures. Building a team. Knight knew he'd need a strong team to succeed, and from the start, he hired people who were hard workers and understood the appeal of running. He sought out people who could bring unique insights that would help the company grow, including Bowerman, Jeff Johnson, and Bob Waddell. 1. Bill Bowerman proved to be an asset to Blue Ribbon, as 2 of his runners won medals in the 1964 Olympics, thus giving Blue Ribbon more credibility. Additionally, Bowerman experimented with the shoes and made improvements. For example, he realized that they needed more arch support since American bodies carried more weight than Japanese bodies, which turned out to be an important early development for the company. 2. Jeff Johnson was an acquaintance of Knight's in college and became Blue Ribbon's first full-time employee when Knight hired him as a salesman. Johnson had an intense passion for running, so he connected easily with customers since they were also runners. Johnson brought a relentless, hard-working energy to the team. Even when, a year after he joined the company, he got in a car crash and broke his skull, he continued to sell shoes. Knight was always impressed by Johnson's results, and he eventually agreed to Johnson's request to open up Nike's first retail store in Los Angeles. Later, when Knight needed to quickly open an East Coast store to expand the company, he put Johnson in charge of it. 3. Later, Knight hired Bob Waddell. Waddell was a former track star who was paralyzed from the waist down due to an accident. Knight liked him because he seemed eager to prove himself despite his disability. Knight asked him to run the company's second retail store in Eugene, Oregon. Like Johnson, Waddell excelled at any job and grew with the company, eventually becoming its operations manager and later helping to design apparel. Qualities of a great team. Knight acknowledges that much of Nike's success comes from building a great team. But what makes a great team? Experts identified 3 key qualities of effective teams. Intellectual diversity. When the members of your team have a range of different experiences, backgrounds, and education, thus leading to more creative solutions. Gender and racial diversity also fall under this category. Psychological safety. When teammates feel safe enough to share their thoughts and ideas. When all members of the team are comfortable speaking up, the team can work better together as a whole. Shared purpose. A goal that the whole team believes is worth fighting for. Your shared purpose will most likely be your crazy idea. A shared purpose can also help create a shared identity. These characteristics fit Knight's team. While they came from similar backgrounds in athletics, they brought different individual strengths and experiences to the company, and Knight made them feel comfortable enough to share their ideas. It was Johnson's idea, for example, to open the company's first retail outlet in Los Angeles. Most importantly, each of them believed in the shared purpose of Knight's crazy idea. Troubles with Onitsuka. Despite Blue Ribbon's impressive sales and new shoe designs, Knight began to worry about his partnership with Onitsuka. There were a few reasons for Knight's worry. Blue Ribbon's contract with Onitsuka was ending soon, so Knight flew to Japan. He asked for a 5-year contract, but Katami, Knight's new Onitsuka contact, wanted a 3-year contract, which made Knight suspicious. Additionally, Onitsuka's shipments were not only late, but they also contained the wrong shoes. They sent pairs of less popular styles and wrong sizes. Knight believed Onitsuka was sending whatever shoes they had left over from their supply in Japan. Another East Coast shoe distributor informed Knight that Onitsuka had approached him about becoming their new U.S. distributor. Knight was confused, since Blue Ribbon had just signed their 3-year contract. Frustrated, Knight contacted a trusted Onitsuka employee, asking him what was going on. He confirmed that while there were no firm plans, Katami was considering breaking Blue Ribbon's contract and was looking for other distributors. Upon learning this information, Knight invited Katami to Oregon. He wanted to show Katami the business he and his team had built in an effort to change Katami's mind about cutting ties with Blue Ribbon. Short-form note. Onitsuka was motivated to find other distributors by a desire to increase their customer reach. Naturally, this was also Knight's desire for Blue Ribbon. In Bowerman and the Men of Oregon, Kenny Moore suggests that Onitsuka's goals and actions weren't aligned. By failing to send correct shoe sizes or to manufacture shoes fast enough to meet consumer demand, and by hesitating to commit to a longer contract with Blue Ribbon, they failed to align their goals with Blue Ribbon's goals as well. Thus, ironically, in pursuing more customers, they blinded themselves to the company that could help them achieve that goal. But Katami's visit to Oregon didn't help Knight's relationship with Onitsuka. In fact, the visit confirmed Knight's suspicions that Onitsuka planned to replace Blue Ribbon. While Katami was in the bathroom, Knight examined a folder from his briefcase. The folder contained a list of 18 shoe distributors in the U.S., and Katami planned to meet with half of them. Knight realized that separating from Onitsuka was inevitable. He decided the best course of action would be to first threaten to sue the other distributors in order to scare them off of taking Onitsuka's business before Knight was ready to replace it, and second, to find another manufacturer for Blue Ribbon. Short-form note. By threatening to sue rival distributors, Knight was employing a common business strategy that some companies use to delay inevitable change. Ironically, in Bowerman and the Men of Oregon, Moore contends that many of the potential shoe distributors Onitsuka had spoken to, who Knight was threatening to sue, wouldn't agree to work with Onitsuka anyway until they had formally ended their partnership with Blue Ribbon. Thus, Knight's threats of legal action to other manufacturers may have been unnecessary, as his actual opponent was now Onitsuka. New section. Nike, a successful backup plan. Worried that Onitsuka would cut ties with Blue Ribbon, Knight started searching for a manufacturer to replace Onitsuka. He created a backup company to use while he scouted for other manufacturers. He asked his team for name ideas, and Johnson suggested Nike, a name that came to him in a dream. Although Knight didn't love it at first, he eventually chose the name Nike for the backup company. He also liked that Nike was the Greek goddess of victory. Knight hired a college artist named Carolyn Davidson to design a logo, and after multiple trials, she came up with the Nike swoosh. They paid her $35. The Blue Ribbon team agreed it looked new, fresh, and timeless, but as with the Nike name, Knight didn't love it. Short-form note. The $35 Knight originally paid Davidson would be worth $247 in 2022. Knight also gave her a diamond and gold swoosh ring and 500 shares of Nike stock in 1983. Those 500 shares, which she never sold, are now worth close to $1 million. Seeking financial support for his new business, Knight found a Japanese trading company called Nisho, which was willing to make loans to Nike. Nisho also introduced Knight to other shoe manufacturers. Short-form note. Some researchers believe that creating a backup plan is detrimental to success, since it creates the space for failure. So why did Knight benefit from creating a backup plan? It could be because Knight clearly defined his success by his progress toward his crazy idea, not by the success of Blue Ribbon. The company was simply a vessel for achieving his crazy idea. Knight's backup plan succeeded because it supported his larger goal, thus creating flexibility for achieving his crazy idea. So when formulating a backup plan, identify whether you're creating more space for success, flexibility like in Knight's case, or creating space for failure. Separating from Onitsuka. Eventually, Onitsuka heard about Nike. Katami flew to the U.S. to confront the Blue Ribbon team about it. Knight told him Nike was a backup plan in case Onitsuka cut ties with Blue Ribbon. When Katami asked if Nike shoes were currently in stores, Knight lied, telling him they weren't. But Katami traveled to Los Angeles and inspected the store, where he found hundreds of Nike boxes in the storage room. Katami formally voided Blue Ribbon's contract. As expected, Onitsuka filed for breach of contract in Japan. Blue Ribbon quickly filed against them in the United States. In 1974, the trial began in Portland. Over several days, members of Blue Ribbon and Onitsuka were interviewed as witnesses. Knight explains that each member of the Blue Ribbon team gave questionable testimony, and Katami lied on the stand. After a tough legal battle, Blue Ribbon eventually won the case in the U.S. The judge ruled only on the trademarks and not on the contract breach, stating it seemed like a case of hearsay. He said that Blue Ribbon's testimony seemed more truthful, ruling that Blue Ribbon could keep shoe rights and was due damages. The Blue Ribbon team was ecstatic about their win. Short-form note. Knight justifies separating from Onitsuka on the grounds that they weren't loyal to Blue Ribbon because they were planning on finding another distributor, which would have put them in breach of contract first. However, in Bowerman and the Men of Oregon, Moore explains that as soon as the team sold a pair of Nikes, they violated their contract with Onitsuka. This may not have been the most strategic decision. Many experts agree that when you suspect a party is going to break your contract, the best course of action is to reach some sort of agreement about it, not breach the contract in response. Financial solutions. Despite their legal victory, Nike had financial problems to address. The company had an ongoing cash flow problem because in his relentless pursuit of growth, Knight insisted on placing shoe orders so large that the company could barely cover the cost. This meant that even though the shoes were selling well, the company's bank accounts were often depleted, usually after either paying for one of these orders or after paying its financing company, Nisho. At one point, Nike needed to make a $1 million payment to Nisho, but was $75,000 short. To cover the difference, Knight depleted the bank accounts of all Nike's retail stores and factories, causing workers' paychecks and creditors' checks to bounce. In response, their bank dropped them as clients, which meant they no longer had an account from which to pay workers, vendors, creditors, or anyone else. Knight sought help from Nisho. Nisho audited Nike's books and found that the company was in poor financial health, with debts looming and no means to pay them. However, Nisho fully believed in Nike's potential and paid off all of Nike's debt with the bank. Knight opened an account with a new bank soon after. Understanding why investors rescue a failing company. Like Nike, many of today's successful companies received outside help to solve their financial problems. In Nike's case, the rescuing company, Nisho, believed in Nike's vision and also stood to profit directly if the company succeeded. The history of business is littered with bailouts driven by similar motives. For example, Elon Musk organized a deal from investors and SpaceX to fund Tesla just hours before going bankrupt, urging investors to believe in his vision for the companies. If Tesla succeeded, the investors and SpaceX stood to profit off its success, just as Nisho stood to profit off Nike's success, giving them an immediate motive for funding it, as long as they bought into its vision. But there are other reasons why one company might bail out another. In some cases, a competitor might help a rival because they see the competition as crucial to the success of the industry as a whole. For example, Apple almost filed for bankruptcy in 1997, but Microsoft bailed them out with a $150 million investment because they thought the competition would be better for the industries and their own future. In situations like this, the rescuing company may not stand to benefit directly, but instead hopes to benefit indirectly, less from immediate loan repayments and more from the resulting long-term health of the industry. Nike's first breakthrough, waffle soles. After being bailed out by Nisho, Knight and Bowerman focused on innovation. They discussed how the outer sole of the training shoe hadn't changed in 50 years. Inspired, Bowerman used his wife's waffle iron to make a gridded pattern for rubber shoe soles. After several rounds of experimenting, he sewed the insoles to the bottom of running shoes, and they were a breakthrough. Within a few years, the waffle soles helped popularize Nike since they broke out of athletic uses. Unlike competitor shoes, Nike's waffle soles became a lifestyle shoe. Short-form note. Many experts agree that creative innovations like Bowerman's are critical to the growth of new companies. In this case, the innovative new waffle soles were such a critical part of Nike's success that the original waffle iron Bowerman used is on display at Nike's headquarters. For years, the original iron was lost, but Bowerman's family found it buried in their backyard in 2011, and they gave it to Nike. Athlete endorsements. Knight and his team continued building the Nike brand by signing athlete endorsements. His first endorser was Romanian tennis player Ilie Nastase, and his second was Olympic runner Steve Prefontaine. Nike treated their endorsers as valued members of their team, not merely as billboards to advertise their products. For example, at the time, Olympic athletes weren't allowed to accept endorsement money from brands, which meant that Prefontaine had virtually no money to live on, as he had very little time to work while maintaining a grueling training and competition schedule. To work around the rule, Nike offered him a position as the National Director of Public Affairs and paid him $5,000 a year. Nike's good treatment of its endorsers paid off in loyalty to the brand, as Prefontaine, Nastase, and later others proved enthusiastic ambassadors of the shoes. Short-form note. Knight's instinct to recruit athlete endorsers was a smart one, since athletes are now one of the most sought-after product endorsers. In Influence, the authors explain that the associative, persuasive appeal of athletes is deep and widespread, cutting across ethnic, regional, age, and economic demographic groups. Athletes are also linked to many positive attributes that brands are eager to associate themselves with: youth, strength, winning, prowess, and physical attractiveness. And Nike has continued signing athlete endorsements. Global soccer icon Cristiano Ronaldo's deal with Nike is estimated at around $1 billion. Customs battle. With Nike's rising popularity and increasing sales came bigger challenges. In 1977, U.S. Customs contacted Nike and asked for $25 million for retroactive duties on imported shoes. While Nike couldn't afford this $25 million fine, they also couldn't afford to pay increased duties on a regular basis. If they did, Nike would go bankrupt. The Treasury Department was unsympathetic to Nike's dilemma. Eventually, the Nike team took matters into their own hands and aired an advertisement that told the story of an American business being suppressed by the government. Knight notes that the ad received a favorable response. With so much pressure, U.S. Customs decided they wanted to move on. They discussed settlement options and eventually decided on $9 million. Although Knight didn't want to pay anything, he wrote the check, reflecting on how far Nike had come. Short-form note. Although Nike overcame the customs battle, experts note that the government essentially subsidized Nike at the expense of other shoe manufacturers, who had to pay the full duty price. Nike responded to these claims, saying that the delayed duty pricing hindered their ability to grow as a company and thus catch up to their more established competitors. Preserving Nike's identity when going public. As part of Nike's expansion, the team finally decided to go public. Knight and his team deliberated about this decision for a long time. They knew going public would help their finances, but Knight was concerned that shareholders would alter Nike's identity and culture. To solve this problem, Knight and his team issued two kinds of stock, Class A and Class B, that allowed the current team to name 3/4 of the board. The team also agreed that Knight should own 46% of the company. They thought Nike needed to be run by one person with a steady vision. These solutions ensured that Knight and his team kept their influence at Nike. When they went public in 1980, the original Nike team, including Bowerman and Johnson, became millionaires. Knight was worth $178 million. But they didn't let their newfound wealth get to their heads. Instead, Knight and his team went back to work. Short-form note. The Nike team delayed going public because they didn't want shareholders to affect the team's identity, a common concern for entrepreneurs, who often worry that shareholders will exert unwanted influence on company decisions. This concern proved a long-lasting one for Nike, and in 2015, after stepping down as chairman, Knight created a limited liability company, LLC, called Swoosh, to hold 128.5 million shares of the influential Class A stock in Nike. Swoosh will make it difficult for outsiders to gain control of the company and will also determine much of Nike's long-term direction. New section: Reflections on Nike's success. After 40 years as Nike's CEO, Knight stepped down, causing him to reflect on the process of building Nike and achieving his crazy idea. Short-form note. Knight never gave a reason for why he stepped down, but he remained a chairman of Nike's board of directors until 2015. He thought of how far Nike had come. They now had $16 billion in sales, and their products are sold in 5,000 stores worldwide. This reflection inspired him to tell the story of Nike. Knight hoped that young entrepreneurs would find comfort in the fact that even a global company like Nike started somewhere. He offers a few insights throughout the book about his and Nike's success. Short-form note. While Nike had come a long way as of 2016, the company has only continued to grow in the years since the book's publication. By 2021, Nike's net worth had increased to over $30 billion. And on the 2021 Fortune 500 list of the largest U.S. corporations by total revenue, Nike ranked 85th. Create an identity. Knight believes that much of Nike's success came from creating an identity as a brand. People resonated with what Nike stood for as a company, and they bought into the Nike identity, which consisted of 3 core values. Athletes. Knight believes that athletes are at the heart of Nike. Because the people on Knight's team were runners, Nike is a brand for athletes created by athletes. They understood and appreciated what it took to be an athlete, to train, and to compete. Customers resonated with Nike's approach because Nike understood their struggles. Innovative shoes. Knight and his team cared about how the shoe looked, felt, and impacted the wearer. This mindset about shoes led to Nike, particularly Bowerman, constantly experimenting with their designs to improve their shoes. Short-form note. Nike's shoes are consistently ranked among the most innovative shoes. Their ethos is still reflected in the company today, as evidenced by Nike's release of a new auto-lacing shoe in 2015. Winning. When reflecting on the goal of Nike, Knight came up with one word: winning. Knight wanted Nike to succeed, and he also wanted people who wore Nike shoes to succeed. This ethos is evident in Nike's "Just Do It" slogan. Marketing perspectives on Nike's identity. Knight believes Nike's identity was a reason for its success, and from a marketing perspective, this belief has merit. In Tribes, marketing expert Seth Godin explains that consumers want to buy into a tribe, or a group of people that are connected by a belief. Nike tapped into a group of people, athletes, and connected them with a belief in using athletic excellence to win. By promoting their "Just Do It" slogan, Nike made consumers feel capable of achieving greatness when they purchased Nike products. Then when a consumer wears Nike apparel, she reinforces her belief that she is part of this tribe and its shared belief in athleticism and winning. Additionally, members of this tribe can identify each other when they wear Nike's products, as well as advertise the product to other consumers. Thus, Nike's emphasis on athletes and winning represents a solid marketing strategy. Cultivate a team with a shared vision. Knight credits much of Nike's success to his team and their hard work. He believes he couldn't have succeeded without them. He recruited friends he trusted and who shared his vision to his team, which included Bowerman, Johnson, and Waddell. Most of them were athletes and shoe dogs, or people who saw crafting shoes as creating the connection between a person and the earth. The team brought this philosophy to their work at Nike. While Knight and his team were all dedicated to Nike's success, they also valued enjoying their work. For example, they called each other the Butt Faces, and they cultivated a fun company culture where they were free to dress casually. Knight fought to preserve this dynamic, such as when he put off the decision to go public for fear that shareholders would ruin Nike's culture. Teamwork and debunking the myth of the lone entrepreneur. In Shoe Dog, Knight is generous with giving credit to his team, and he never takes credit for Nike's success. He inadvertently debunks the myth of the sole inventor, entrepreneur, and CEO who builds their business alone, demonstrating instead that behind every great idea, invention, and business is a team of exceptional people who use their skills for the benefit of a shared vision. For example, Apple. Although Steve Jobs is heralded for Apple's success, he had help along the way from his co-founders, Steve Wozniak and Ronald Wayne. John Sculley and Jeff Raskin also propelled Apple's growth. Tesla. While Elon Musk brought much-needed management skills to Tesla, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning founded Tesla, and J.B. Straubel and Ian Wright improved the software and battery technology for the cars. Amazon. Jeff Bezos had help building Amazon. Mackenzie Scott was very involved in the company's success. She worked on the company's name, business plan, and contracts. While these entrepreneurs certainly influenced the course and success of each company, none of them built their business alone. Hands-off management style. Knight embraced a hands-off management style for Blue Ribbon and Nike. He didn't give his team guidance on how to complete a task, preferring to trust them and be surprised by their results. While his hands-off approach became a company joke, most employees agreed that they thrived with the freedom to do their jobs to the best of their ability. For example, Johnson flourished without traditional management, and his work always exceeded Knight's expectations. Eventually, Knight understood that Johnson would excel at any task he asked him to do, even if that task seemed impossible. Short-form note. While Knight believes his hands-off management style benefited Nike, in Stop Spending, Start Managing, the authors argue that leaders can fall into a macro-management trap, or when managers are so uninvolved that it's detrimental for employees, causing confusion, uncertainty, and overworking. Leaders may fall into this trap because they prefer to rely on all-star teams, but these kinds of teams are very rare. For example, the 2004 U.S. men's Olympic basketball team had many all-star players but didn't perform well. Experts explain that guidance and freedom aren't mutually exclusive, and managers should give employees both.